Hello, my name is Tanya. I make things. I'm a professional graphic designer, but on this channel I mostly make crafty things like patchwork. Today I wanted to talk about creativity. And first of all, I want to apologize for the sound because it's going to be a bit echoey, and I'm in the city. And outside, people are cutting granite tiles with a saw. It's very, very loud, and it's also very, very hot. So I cannot close the windows, and this room is the only room with the air conditioning on. So you can probably hear the air conditioning and the washing, and maybe even the tiles being cut outside. Anyway, creativity. I have been working as I'm going to be stitching as I do this. Creativity. I've been a professional graphic designer since 2011. I worked at a job at a company that sells crafting supplies to crafting stores. So it's a B2B kind of situation. I started off as a photographer, and then I started doing some designy things, and eventually I became a graphic designer, got a degree in graphic design and all that good stuff. One of the things that happen if you work in a company like that is that we were participating in a lot of craft shows. Sometimes we had kind of events in our company, and we were doing kind of a small craft show for our clients in there. And everybody who was capable of such a thing was doing workshops on various things, because we wanted to sell materials, obviously. So we were doing things like flowers from felt to sell more felt. We were doing flowers from fabric to sell more fabric. We were doing all kind of other things, crafty things like little things that had to do with cross stitch and decoupage. I'm not sure if that's what it is. Anyway, I think that the most popular crafting thing in Russia is knitting, and I always forget about knitting. Yeah, we had a lot of workshops, and I worked with for several years, so I have quite a portfolio of projects that I did for that. It's a separate skill, like coming up with a workshop and teaching a workshop. I used to teach a quilting masterclass, knowing nothing about quilting. It was a little project of like a Christmas star. It was patchworked, and then it was quilted to a felt base, a felt backing, and it was just simple fun. And we were selling metallic thread. It was a very high quality thing, and I knew nothing about sewing at that point. I was very, very bad. I haven't seen a sewing machine in person in years at that point, and everybody who took that workshop, who was one of my students, they were better at it than I was. But it was a huge success, this workshop. Even though I had no idea what I was doing, I knew how to teach the thing. So everybody went out there very happy. But what I want to say about this is I have first-hand experience of how people are not creative, even though the audience of a craft show is not a random selection audience. It's makers, it's crafty people. So they should be more creative than the average person, theoretically. But I've noticed that in a lot of cases, somebody comes up to the table and says, I want to make this. And we always have samples, and the person can choose anything out of our materials, because we would always provide some variety for people to choose from. And they would say, I want to make exactly the same thing that you did. And it happened a lot of the time. A lot of the time people would choose something different. But I think what it comes down to is kind of being ready to risk making something badly. If you choose wrong, you might end up with something that doesn't look like the sample. And maybe you won't like it, and you won't get a second chance to try this. And we really wanted people to try this at home. Stabbed myself. We wanted people to go home to buy some fabric, or some felt and some thread, and go home and try out the technique that we were teaching. Anyway, a lot of people don't like taking those kinds of risks, and it's very hard to make those people improvise. Like, I cannot improvise with music. I'm not just gifted in this way. I would sit at a drum set and my teacher would tell me, and now just improvise for 5 minutes. And I would say, no, it was such a torture. I cannot improvise when it comes to music, even if it's something like drums, which I kind of wasn't completely unfamiliar with. Anyway, I think a lot of being creative is making risky decisions, even though they don't always make a lot of sense. Like quitting your job to become a full-time author isn't a good choice usually. It might work out, but statistically speaking, it won't. You won't do better if you quit your job. Probably. It's not a good decision, but sometimes creative people have to make those decisions. They kind of have to do the counterintuitive thing to pursue the dream, even though it doesn't make a lot of sense logically. So, what I wanted to talk about is that how much I hate the phrase, oh, everybody is creative. As children, we're so creative, but then we grow out of it. And that's partly true, because I think that as children we have to do a lot of exploration of our surroundings. We have to test out what works, what doesn't work, what happens if I do this. And that's the part of growing up. You're mapping out the world around you. But once you're at a functional age, you don't have to do this anymore. So from the energy saving perspective, it doesn't make a lot of sense to try out new things and to venture out into the unknown. And that's what creativity, I think, kind of is. What if I do this? What if I do that? I want to write a book. What if this happens? And what if I want to make a quilt? What if I take these colors and put them together? What's going to happen? Is this going to look good? What's going to do if I make this dress? Am I capable of making this thing or that thing? I think that this adventureness, that's not a word. Being adventurous, I think, is a big part of creativity, and being unafraid to make this kind of counterintuitive decisions, because you kind of have to. You kind of have no choice. You won't just feel satisfied with your life if you don't give it a go. Like you have to wake up in the middle of the night and write some things down. Otherwise, it's just going to be lost in the ether and you will never be happy again. That's what it feels like sometimes. So being creative is not a good thing, or a lot of the time it doesn't feel like this, because you have to do you cannot just stick to one thing. Sometimes you find it difficult to hold down a job because they make you do things that feel wrong and other things, and you just it's more difficult this way, I think. And we need, on the other hand, we need people who are not creative, because they make things happen. They can just follow through with the process. Creative people can also follow through, but it's kind of difficult. There's a thing with Russians and kind of production. When we make something one of something, it's unique, it's going to be the best in the world a lot of the time, like a rocket. We can build a very good rocket. But when it comes to mass production, I think that our people just get bored, and so the quality isn't there anymore, because it's not fun, it's not unique anymore, it's not a challenge. I have this theory. It's a hypothesis. Anyway, I think that this idea that, oh, everybody is creative, is actually harmful for everybody. Because if you're a creative person and everybody is supposed to be creative, that means that you're not that special, and all of your suffering is just nonsense because everybody is creative. I'm of course joking, because if you're creative and everybody is creative, everybody has to be able to understand what you're going through, and that's not the case. Creative people go through some stuff that people who are not creative don't go through, and there are far less creative people than there are non-creative people. That's how the world is supposed to work, because it wouldn't work if everybody was creative. There are different levels to being creative, naturally, but I think that even if people are makers, not all of them are creative, because I know a lot of people who do like cross-stitch patterns. They like the process of making a thing, but they follow other people's decisions. There are instructions. There's a chart, and you do thing, and in the end you get something that you expect to get. And if that's something that you didn't expect, you're going to be really bothered, because I was hoping this picture was on the package. I want to get exactly the same thing that was on the sample. So being a maker doesn't guarantee that a person is creative. That's also fine. Like those people on craft shows, they are supposed to be makers. They are supposed to be crafty people. But not all of them were creative at all. What's next? If a person is not creative, like deeply not creative, I've met some of those, they are going to feel inadequate as well, because everybody is supposed to be creative. I'm not creative. What's wrong with me? And those are people that we need most, because they are the backbone of society. They don't invent anything, but they kind of follow the things that are already there. They maintain the order, because if everybody was creative, things would fall into pieces all the time. So yes, there are certain things that bother me, and I don't like this idea that everybody is creative. Everybody is not creative. Most people aren't. That's good. And the problem with creativity is that you cannot kind of force it away. My mom tried to kind of force creativity out of me for a very long time until she gave up. I think I was in my 30s when that happened. So yeah, being creative person, being an artsy person, being a musical person, it makes you do things that don't make sense. But in the end, that's the people who make the world move on to something new and different and exciting. Yeah. So that's what I have to say. Just don't say that everybody is creative because it might hurt some feelings. I'll see you next week with something else.